First tonight, grief turns to outrage. Tonight, a community and a nation left to wonder whether more lives could have been saved in Uvalde. This is Nightside. I'm Dave Wagner.
And I'm Miranda Parnell. Investigators are now admitting to mistakes that some say cost those children their lives. Law enforcement detailed the timeline of what happened today and why it took 45 minutes to get into the classroom where a gunman killed 19 students and 2 teachers. At 11:27 a.m., a door to the school was propped open by a teacher. Just 1 minute later,
the suspect vehicle crashes into the ditch. The teacher runs to the room 132 to retrieve a phone, and that same teacher walks back to the exit door, and door remains propped open.
2 minutes later, she calls 911 to report the crash and an armed gunman. At 11:31, the gunman steps foot on campus, shooting at the school from the last row of cars in the parking lot as police respond to the funeral home. The school resource officer was not at the school, but rushes over after hearing the 911 call.
Sped to what he thought was the man with a gun, to the back of the school, what turned out to be a teacher, and not the suspect. In doing so, he drove right by the suspect, who was hunkered down behind a vehicle, where he began shooting at the school.
Just 2 minutes later, the gunman is able to enter the school through an open door. That's when the rampage begins in 2 classrooms. At least 100 rounds were fired. At 11:35, 3 Uvalde police officers entered the school through the same door as the gunman. 2 of the officers were grazed by bullets, and later 3 other officers and a deputy entered the school. Nearly 30 minutes later, as many as 19 officers are in the hallway. A student in the room with the shooter calls 911, whispering to the dispatcher. She calls 3 more times before Border Patrol arrives at 12:15.
Again at 12:16, she's called back and said there was 8 to 9 students alive.
Another student calls 3 minutes later, but then gets disconnected when another student told her to hang up. 3 more minutes pass before the gunman fires again, and law enforcement move down the hallway. The student calls 911 several more times.
At approximately 12:43 and 12:47, she asked 911 to please send the police now. At 12:46, she said that she could hear the police next door.
By 12:50, the group of officers used keys from a janitor to get into the classroom, shooting and killing the gunman once inside, ending more than 1 hour of terror.
And Texas Governor Greg Abbott says the Texas Department of Public Safety is investigating what went wrong and looking into the decisions that prevented officers from entering sooner.